Dončić has the ball, down by 2.
There's the switch.
Gobert is out there. Dončić maneuvers for the lead. Got it! Got it! What a shot! Dallas has taken the lead.
So boy, was I wrong about the Dallas Mavericks. We just wrapped up game 2 of the Mavericks versus Minnesota Timberwolves series. Probably exceeded the hype by a pretty substantial margin because game 1 was a thriller and game 2 was somehow an even bigger thriller. Kyrie was amazing in the second half. Great defense from the Dallas Mavericks. More struggling offensively from the Minnesota Timberwolves. And then Luka gave us another Luka Dončić special. Not only did he give you a 30-point triple-double, but he also gave you a step-back 3 dotted right in the eye of the DPOY recipient in Rudy Gobert. And actually, that's probably a really great place to start at. I'm gonna be honest with you all, going into the series, I really wasn't that high on what Luka and Kyrie were going to be able to do. Not necessarily believing that they're going to be bad, but I certainly didn't think that they were going to play this good, especially Luka. Like I said, Luka in this game put up 32 points, 13 assists, 10 rebounds. Shooting splits wasn't the greatest, especially from the field, but in particular in the second half is when Luka picked it up pretty immensely. Luka went out there and gave the Mavericks 16 points, 8 assists, 55% from the field, 40% from behind the arc, a perfect 4 for 4 from the charity stripe. And it was the combination of scoring and facilitating that really pushed him over the edge this game, but also in the previous game as well. Luka is doing an amazing job with bringing the physicality to Jaden McDaniels and not the other way around. Of course, his body and frame allows him to do so. He's leveraging that in his favor in this matchup, and he's having his way with a player who I believe is one of the best POA defenders in the NBA. And in this game in particular, he was sensational, picking apart the #1 ranked defense. It was just meticulous, being able to make certain reads, manipulate some of the best defenders in the NBA, and just consistently produce really good offense, not only for himself, but for literally everyone else. It's the reason why by the end of this game, Derek Lively came off the bench with 14 points and a perfect 6 for 6 from the field. And then Daniel Gafford, he himself got 16 points, 8 for 10 from the field himself. And a lot of that was manifested either from Luka or Kyrie Irving, constantly putting Rudy Gobert in action, taking as much space as possible in drop coverage, and then in the slightest of space that they have, being able to manipulate and bait Rudy Gobert into believing that they're going to take a shot, but they actually throw a lob, dump off pass, and it was a ridiculous pass from Kyrie this game where he bobbled it and still was able to get off a good read. I think it was to Daniel Gafford. It is easier said than done trying to compete with Luka Dončić every single possession and pick and rolls. It's easier said than done. And I think the lazy take a couple of months ago when he put on that special against the Atlanta Hawks was, oh, the NBA, they don't play defense. Like, I think that was a lazy conversation. You can clearly see this is a defense that we witnessed go through the Phoenix Suns, top 10 offense, the Denver Nuggets, a top 10 offense, made both of them look like mediocre offenses in the NBA. So this is not a ball club that is bad defensively by any stretch of the imagination. It's just that it's really, really hard to defend someone who is as good as a passer, playmaker, scorer as Luka Dončić when you give him space and you give him lob threats. Minnesota was up by 18 points in the middle of the second quarter. Before we start breaking down what Minnesota is doing defensively and what's going on there, I actually also want to give a huge shout out to Dallas's defense. You know, I wasn't a huge believer in what the Mavericks do defensively. It's been on full display. People criticized the Mavericks last year for sitting Luka. Some people even criticized Luka for him being sat out, even though that wasn't his decision. That decision last year put them in a position to get Derek Lively. Then, of course, the mid-season acquisition of Daniel Gafford. And that athleticism in the front court, in particular at the 5 spot, has really given them a lot more versatility and flexibility on what they can run defensively. Having someone at the 5 spot constantly kind of roaming around in the paint. And what this has really done is completely erased Anthony Edwards out of any conversation of being any level of consistent production at all in this series. Anthony Edwards tonight, just another bad night for Ant. Went out there and gave you 21 points on 17 shots, shot 5 for 17 from the field, 2 for 7 from behind the arc. Though he did get to the free throw line 10 times, there was a lot of missed layups. Some of that may have to do with Ant not being at a point in his career where he has the ability to make long postseason runs, but also I do credit some of the rim protection from Daniel Gafford and Lively once more. The turnovers is what also kind of kills Anthony Edwards. And even if they're not turnovers, the Mavericks defense, they put Anthony Edwards in such a peculiar situation that even when he makes the right read, it's really, really difficult for him to get that pass off. Pass is all the way up in the air. Somebody got to jump one hand, grab it down. And by the time this teammate is trying to catch the ball, the defense is already rotating over and recovering, and any advantage that you might have seen originally is effectively been erased. And how they've been able to utilize the center in the middle, regardless if that's Lively or Gafford, has been very unique, because anytime Anthony Edwards comes off of a screen, he's immediately met with someone else that is deterring him from getting to the lane. And there's even times where Ant will come off a screen and even weak side help kind of rotates over and kind of just sits in the lane, because they know when the screen is set, Gobert's diving to the paint anyway. So then that also kind of removes a lot of the 3 seconds in the key, because they're going to get picked up by Gobert regardless. So a lot of bodies being seen towards Ant. There's multiple times where he's driving to the paint and there's like 4 or 5 defenders just looking at him. He's getting superstar attention, and we're going to be honest with ourselves, he's not performing up to par. Game 1 wasn't good. Game 2 might have been even worse. And again, these are some of the growing pains that you would see with a 22-year-old. So on one hand, I want to say he's 22, give him some grace. You know, this is going to be great for his career, because Ant struggling this early on, getting these type of reps, it's perfect, because he's now going to know, hey, moving forward, especially as a ball handler, I have to be a better decision maker. I have to be crisp with my reads. Potentially, I need to pace myself a little bit accordingly. There's a lot of things that Ant is going to learn from this playoff run, regardless if they win or lose, and you'll be able to improve. But on the other hand, I'm not going to act like many of us weren't trying to jump to conclusions. I've tried to be hesitant, to be fair to myself, and to be fair to some of you. I think we've all tried to be hesitant, but the comparisons were there. People were willing to jump Ant over a bunch of other players in the league, and for the first time, really, Ant is actually seeing multiple bodies when he's driving, and teams are defending him like he is a top 5 to top 7 player in the NBA. And so when met with that type of resistance, every other top 5, top 7, even top 10 player in the league has to understand, has to maneuver around not only being a scorer, but also a proper passer and playmaker. So it does kind of breed the question of, like, did we potentially jump to that conclusion a bit too early? Possibly. I'm willing to admit when I'm wrong. I was certainly bought into the hype. It sucks to watch him struggle because everybody's kind of rooting for him. You still want to see Ant win. Another bad game from Karl Anthony Towns as well. Karl Anthony Towns cannot have a bad game standing next to Rudy Gobert in the front court. Tonight, Towns 4 for 16 from the field, 1 for 5 from behind the arc, 15 points on 16 shot attempts, just not going to cut it. And even when you watch some of the shot selection, these are gimmies, and a game that was decided by 1 point, those are shots that will inevitably bite you in the backside. Also, Jaden McDaniels' first game had a miraculous game. Of course, many people like myself didn't believe it was sustainable. 1 for 6 from the field, 0 for 3 from behind the arc. But defensively is where things are a bit shaky for me. He puts himself in such a predicament because it's much more difficult to defend Luka in the aggressive manner in which he was able to defend someone like Devin Booker and Jamal Murray. Luka has effectively just conditioned a lot of defenders, even the great defenders, to tell them, like, hey, if you play physical with me, I am liable to grift my way through contact to get to the free throw line and also get you in foul trouble. If you get aggressive with me, I'm doing it. I'm going to do all that. I'm getting sent to the charity stripe, and you're getting 2 on you, boy. Now, with all that being said, this still was just a 1-point game, and same thing with game 1 as well. It was a very close game, and Minnesota found themselves with a near 20-point lead, and that's the reason why it's so hard to call this series over. It's all about a game of adjustments, and I do believe there needs to be some adjustments being made for Minnesota. Cannot have Anthony Edwards setting up offense at the top of the key. Move the ball a little bit more. Shift the defense as much as you can and allow him to attack on closeouts, because him just operating at the top isn't really working for this offense whatsoever. I also believe they need to utilize Karl Anthony Towns in much more pick and roll sets or pick and pop sets, because that's a great way to kind of stretch out the zone as much as you possibly can, making sure that there isn't too many players occupying the same spot while having Rudy Gobert in the dunker, so you can kind of move that middleman in the zone away from the lane, or at least potentially move him out of the way from penetration from Anthony Edwards or Mike Conley, because I think that's something that also has really, really hurt them. But another great game from Naz Reid. He's been great. Mike Conley had a bounce back game. They're still effectively getting enough production from everyone else, even when Towns and Anthony Edwards is struggling, for them to still compete. And this is the reason why I feel like, again, I just don't want to call this series completely over. But the reason why I may lean in that direction is because of the Rudy Gobert conundrum. Now, in essence, the last shot of this game where Luka gets Rudy Gobert on the switch and he basically just toys with him for a step back three is something that's going to be talked about and captured for literally the next 2 days. My take on that last possession is this. I'm not necessarily mad that Gobert got fried in space because it's Luka Dončić, and Luka Dončić is going to make great shots. He's one of the best isolation scorers in NBA history. I believe you could very well argue the best pick and roll operator in NBA history. So these things are going to happen, right? My problem with Gobert is the lack of IQ that I not only saw in that possession, but also in several other possessions, how they were just utilizing him, which is just mind-blowing to me. In particular, in the last possession, if you get beat, that's okay. Get him off the three-point line. The objective of that possession is to first and foremost take away the three-point shot. Why are you trying to recover back on the drive? Doesn't make any sense when he doesn't have that much time left, but putting yourself in a compromising situation to try to recover to close off the drive, knowing that a step back is bound to come, that's just bad IQ. I don't need to chase him all the way to the basket. I just need to make sure that he doesn't get a three off. But sitting here and trying to chase him off and then you're just all noodle legs, that then just really begs the question of from an IQ standpoint, why did you do that? That just doesn't make any sense. Also, and more importantly, why was Gobert in pick and roll sets playing at that high of a level all night long? I just don't understand that, especially when you have Derrick Jones Jr. and PJ Washington combining for 5 for 16 from the field and 0 for 7 from behind the arc. The two players that were in the corner did not make a corner three-point shot all night long. Dallas has now found ways to beat this team consistently, and there hasn't been any alterations whatsoever in how they scheme against the Mavericks in these sets. Double drag at the top of the key, they were running that over and over and over again, and at the second screen on the double drag was Rudy Gobert's man, and Rudy is now trying to stop in space where you have Kyrie or Luka coming off of both screens with momentum, and now you have Gobert trying to either show at the level and blitz, put his hands up, but it's Luka Dončić, so he's still going to be able to make the read. And now you have Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford kind of diving to the basket, easy two-pointers. I have no idea why you just don't put Rudy Gobert defending the corners so Rudy Gobert can still be essentially backline help, tag the roll man, make Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford beat you by making the right reads, and then make two players who did not make a three-pointer all game long beat you by making a three-pointer. Putting Rudy Gobert in action takes away from the thing he's most valuable at, and that is rim protection. And putting him in compromising situations to defend in space against Luka Dončić and Kyrie Irving is ridiculous. I still don't think that Gobert has been as bad defensively in this postseason run as many people try to make him out to be, but I just thought that today was very, very telling. I do believe that only AD, Bam, and Draymond, and probably Triple J as well, could defend Luka in this manner, but I still do believe that it is fair to question the value of Gobert's defensive prowess if there is a way that we can kind of pick at him over and over and over again. But again, I think a lot of this stuff is still fixable. It's the reason why this series is so entertaining, because you can watch it, you can see what's happening, and in real time you can start to piece together what each team is attempting to do, and a lot of it just comes down to who's going to execute better, and it comes down to also who's just going to be more skilled, tough shot making, or at least decision making down the stretch of this game. Congratulations to the Dallas Mavericks going up 0-2. It is amazing. Minnesota has a lot of changes to do. I say take Gobert off of the level, put him backline, keep him backline. I don't know why he's playing at the level. I don't understand that. Also, get a little bit more flexibility offensively with the pick and rolls by putting Towns or Naz in those situations, and just move the ball a little bit more so Anthony Edwards can attack closeouts. But even with, again, struggle games from both Ant and Towns, these games are still winnable, which is why this series will continue to be great. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below in this series so far. How do y'all feel about Karl-Anthony Towns, Anthony Edwards, Gobert, and the rest of the Timberwolves? How do you feel about Luka Dončić and Kyrie Irving? Also, as always, if you want to watch these games live with me, I am live literally every single day until the finals are done over at playback.tv/Lowe's Room. Link will be in the description. And if you want to get your merch, barefaceclothing.com. Got a bunch of new merch up there on the shop. Make sure you go check them out as always. If not, until next time, we'll see you later. Peace.